Collate Solutions Engineer Keya Karminian is my guest for this Collate Discovery. Are you rocking today, Keya?
John, I'm always rocking. Not as much as you are, though, with the looks of those guitars behind you. I'm still waiting on the intro song to one of these discovery calls being you with a riff or something.
Um,
There he is.
I will
Always ready.
I will say all the theme songs are I put together. So for all the different channels. So there you go.
It's very talented. Very talented.
Well, we'll talk about my Grammy nomination another time. All right. So we did a recent episode about personas, and that led me down the path of roles and policies. So, in a bit of a departure to some of our other conversations, I've got actually specific questions that I want to ask, and you can screen share and show me the answers while you explain if that flow works for you.
Sure. No problem.
All right. So, to kick it off, out of the box, what roles does Collate?
So I think it's worth calling out what a role means first. So
Okay.
this is when we start to get into security. Okay. A lot of clients come to us or prospects come to us that are like, what do you guys have as far as security, as far as access control? Because a lot of companies are, concentrating on what their users can see, what they can't see, what they can do. So the roles portion is the whole what can you do, what can you view sort of concept. So to answer your questions, what roles does Collate offer out of the box? Now, a couple of our competitors offer like an admin, data steward, and viewer out of the box, and then they have a couple optional ones.
Okay.
Well, Collate really only gives you admin because we try to empower our users to create those other roles because every team is different. Every organization is different.
Mhm.
Maybe this role over here is a data engineer role versus this one, we call it a data steward. Different responsibilities, same responsibilities. It could be either or. So
Okay.
that's kind of what a role is. And when it comes to out of the box roles in Collate, admin is really the only one because we want to be able to let our Collate admins field make those decisions.
Okay, yeah. So you start at the top, you create all the filtering that you want with regard to a role. So since we did just cover personas, what is the difference? And you kind of touched on it. You said roles is more about the security aspect. Persona is kind of what you see. But is there more to the difference between the role and the persona than that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll actually start sharing my screen here on this one. So if I come to my user profile up here, I can see I have personas and I have the roles. Notice how the roles, I can't really change. And notice I have inherited roles.
Hmm.
So again, persona is that UI UX customization.
Okay.
How do we apply what we're looking at to the user that's looking at it? Just a quick example, like we did in our last video, I'm a data steward, so I'm seeing certain navigation pane items, certain widgets in my homepage. But if I go to business user, everything changes. The widgets change to what's more applicable to me that my admin has set up for me, the homepage, but just not the homepage. Everywhere in Collate, there's a lot of different pages you can customize. Okay, now that's personas. Now roles are more the what can I do from a permissioning standpoint? Can I view sample data? Can I edit glossaries, or can I just view them, or can I see them at all? These are things when we talk about the role difference between roles and personas. Roles are permission-based access controls, whereas personas are more visualization, UI, UX components.
Okay. So with personas, that can, you create them, we add these people to that. So with a role, can that apply to, well, I mean, it's going to apply to users, but can it apply to groups of users? Is that where teams come in, or how's that structured?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll show you here as well for team and user management. If I come here, see I have options for teams, users, admin. So let's just click on teams real quick. And just a heads up, teams are just a group of users that you want to group together.
Okay.
So if we see here, we have some examples here in my sandbox environment. We have different teams. We have supply chain team, sales team, marketing team. And then within some of these teams, we have sub teams. So within the engineering team, we have engineering owners, engineering stewards. Okay.
Okay.
Now, within this top level team, I may have a certain group of roles certain group of policies attached, which we'll get into later, I hope.
Mm.
With these roles, they're applied to everyone in this team, including everyone in this sub team. So when we get here, obviously this is a good example, but we have roles associated with these sub teams as well. So it allows for a different layer of permissioning. So maybe the top level, this is a big use case. Maybe the top level of our engineering team has a domain access role, which means maybe they have a role set where the only permissioning behind that is they can only view metadata and data assets within a certain domain. They can't see
Wow.
anything outside of it.
Okay.
And that's kind of one of our biggest use cases. And then inside the sub teams, we have you see owners and stewards. Then we get more into the permissioning aspect. Which ones
Mm,
are in charge of data quality? Which ones are in charge of glossary terms and business definition?
okay.
All different components of Collate. So a lot of different possibilities there.
Okay. So I see policies there. And so what is the difference between a role and a policy?
Great question. So a role is a culmination of different policies. Okay. So if I go here and add a role here, actually, let's go back. Let's go to settings, access control. So this is where we come to our roles and policies. See, you see roles and policies are separate entities. So if I come to policies, because this is where our journey starts, we have to create a policy. And when we create a policy, let's go to that domain only access policy I told you about earlier.
Okay.
Here we can see that all this does is for all the resources, it denies for editing everything if it is not in the user's domain. So this has domain, for example, is what we use as a formula, if you will,
Okay.
to say, is this data asset in the domain that the user is in? Okay. So a user or a team that the user is a part of can be in a domain. So that domain has to match whatever data asset I'm looking at in order to trigger this. So this is a policy. Okay. And this is the rule within that policy. So if I come to roles here, I'll see the roles that incorporate this policy. So this domain only access role, you see, matches a domain only access policy. So here we have just that one policy as part of this role. So it's a one-to-many relationship where one role can have many policies.
Okay. So you kind of touched on rules there. So where does that fit in with respect to the access control?
Yeah, great question. So this is where a lot of users start to ask a lot of questions like roles, policies, rules. How does this all work together?
Yeah.
So it's a hierarchical sort of situation. Okay, we're still at the access policy level here. Okay, so this is the middle ground. This is the middle between the rules and roles.
Okay.
So you see here, domain only access rule. Each rule within a policy is its own type of permission. So I can add more rules to this policy. I can take away rules. So it's another one to many where you're going to have one policy to many rules. And maybe you want a domain rule, but then also a, metadata viewing rule or a viewing sample data rule incorporated to it. So that's kind of the hierarchy that it goes. So it starts at rule at the bottom. There's many rules to a policy, and there can be many policies to a rule. So really letting you customize to the fullest here.
Yeah, that's a lot of flexibility.
Exactly.
So what resources can I control permissions on?
Oh, great question. So let's go to adding a rule, and I can actually show you what that looks like.
Excellent.
So you see, the first thing you select when creating a rule to add to a policy is the resources. Well, we can do all if we want to go for maybe an overall viewer role or an overall admin role. But then from here, like you said, it can get pretty, customizable. We can talk about things like containers, specifications, so your tagging, dashboards, your BI tools, dashboard models, data contracts, database schemas, keep
Wow.
going. We can talk about glossary terms, ingestion pipelines. So these are agents like metadata agent, lineage agent.
Oh yeah.
Keep going, pipelines, queries, a lot of different possibilities here. And behind each one is a set of different operations. So this is starting to get into that granular level of viewing, editing, creating, things like that. So for example,
Okay.
if I wanted a role where I would deny access to viewing queries, you see the operations here are creating, deleting, view all, view basic, edit all. I would do view all, edit all, and I would deny it.
Ah,
So now I'm denying the ability to view and edit queries for this rule. This rule will then go into a policy, which will then it you can attach policies to users and teams, but it's usually good to have a role because the role is what you associate it with. So
you might have touched on this, but what permissions can I approve or deny on these resources?
So that would be the views and edits. So let's go back to this and let's go to a more involved thing like glossary terms.
Okay.
So glossary terms will be very similar. You'll get the edits, the create, the deletes. So you can go as view basic if you wanted, which means you can only see top level details of it. You can view everything, which goes down to the properties of the data asset. And edit all just covers all these editing. But you can also get more granular. Maybe you will only want to be able to edit the tiers and tags behind glossary terms. You can do that for certain roles. So
Mm,
that's how granular we can get with permissioning.
wow. Well, with that groundwork, what are some of the common use cases you've seen, clients do when it comes to these different kinds of roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. It all depends on the organization, the team. Some of the main things we see, actually, we have some out of the box ones we provide, which help kind of lead the way. So we have some data steward roles and policies here in this sandbox that we've created, the domain only access. So data steward, data engineers, data owners. So data owners would be that role where you give to maybe DBAs or admins for your BI sources because you want them to be able to come into Collate and create the data source connections. You don't want everyone to be able to do that because then you'll have a bunch of connections that don't have any, input, no meat on the bone, if you will. So
Okay.
that's why you can create those certain roles to do that. We've seen things like business analyst, obviously, that's more of a very higher role, very less technical.
Yeah. You
And you can
want to look.
do the mix. Exactly. You can do that the mix of roles and personas.
Nice. Okay. So with that, is there a way outside of the UI to create roles and policies? I know we don't touch on that too much.
Yeah, we can. So you can do that to the API. And a good use case for this would actually be if maybe you are dynamically creating roles and policies. We see it from time to time, not that often, but if we just go to our API docs here, this is available in every instance. And we just type in roles, for example, you'll see we have list roles, update roles, create a new role, get a role by name,
Yeah.
all sorts of different features. And then obviously we have the same available policy, do policies that you're able to do as well.
Oh,
So,
okay. Nice.
yeah.
All right. Let me ask you a last question here. I worked at a place years ago using Active Directory. And they were trying to synchronize, I think it was Apache Ranger. But is there a way to use or utilize or map Active Directory? Because people who have that have invested a lot of time usually in setting those things up to kind of monitor those changes and push that kind of back and forth with Collate.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this subject, by the way, because I love introducing it to folks. Technical or non-technical, a lot of teams don't know about this, but there is a protocol within certain AD tools
Hmm.
called SCIM. SCIM is spelled SCIM,
Hmm.
and it's a group provisioning protocol. What that means is it allows you to map your AD groups to Collate groups.
Oh,
So those groups that you saw that had the roles associated to them, you could map those to.
hmm.
And what that lets you do is if you have a uh, AD platform like Entra ID or Okta, these tools support SCIM. So the first step would be setting up SSO to Collate, being able to have users log in via SSO.
Yeah.
Once that SSO integration is enabled, then you can, on top of that, layer SCIM. So that provides an extra convenience factor, if you will,
Yeah.
because when you don't have SCIM enabled, and let's say John Smith is a part of uh, my Collate platform,
Yeah.
and John Smith then leaves my company for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I, as a Collate admin, need to go in, suspend his user account, do all that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, when John Smith had joined, I have to go into Collate, create his user, and then add him to a group. Skim eliminates all those steps into one.
Hmm.
So if John Smith starts at my organization, I add John Smith to the engineering owner or engineering steward AD group on my side. And then he's then added automatically to the Collate engineering steward group.
Yeah.
Steward stuff. And then if John Smith leaves for whatever reason, that user is suspended automatically. So you don't have to worry about anything because it's directly mapped to your AD. And that's where all of
Wow.
your user and group management will be maintained.
That is actually super convenient. I've run IT at far too many companies where onboarding, offboarding somebody, it's like, here's these 15 places that you have to go and configure.
Yeah, we all know it too well. Yeah, that's why. I mean, this is really a benefit from the those AD companies that run Active Directory.
Yeah.
Uh, they're the ones that supported and thought about it, and now we can use it to our advantage. So, yeah, Skim is super helpful, especially for a convenience factor. Definitely worth looking into if you use an SSO provider that supports Skim.
Fabulous. Super informative once again, Keya. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take it easy. See you next time, Sean.
Ciao.